Hi, this is Paul. I'm just getting back into the swing of things. I'm just back in Sacramento, and that long plane days provoked some time to catch up on some videos. And Glenn Scrivener had now has rebranded. It's no longer Speak Life, it's now Glenn Scrivener, because persons are becoming more and more things than brands. Had this video on Alex O'Connor and Joe Weller, and Alex O'Connor knows very quickly in this video that all the Christian apologists are going to pick up on this. And so I'm going to sort of follow up on Glenn, on Joe Weller, but something else that I noticed about Alex O'Connor in this video. Now, Alex O'Connor has, in other conversations, said he's sort of tried Christianity and God has never showed up. And Alex O'Connor now, along with I just made a video for someone that is going to come out in a little while. They asked, it's a response video to another video that's not yet on open YouTube, and et cetera, et cetera. But it already has me thinking about sort of the recession of modernity, I'd say the rise of personalism. I thought Sam and Nate's conversation today, I haven't listened to all of it, but the beginning of it, when Nate really starts to lean into personalism, I thought that was very helpful. And this is sort of along the way, but you'll see why I sort of grabbed onto this.
He couldn't help himself but give an argument for
But first I have to get all the settings right. Let's try again.
God's existence. But what I really want to draw attention to is then what Joe Weller does, because Joe Weller is less interested in all the philosophical arguments. He's more interested in, Alex, if you're open to the existence of God in that philosophical realm, why don't you open yourself up to God in a more existential way? Here's the way that Joe Weller puts it.
It's like,
Now, I think it's helpful because, of course, there's always the debate about, is Jordan Peterson a Christian? What kind of a Christian is? One of the clearest things that Jordan Peterson ever said on the internet in response to someone who sort of, once again, put this question to him very directly, said, well, maybe I'm an existentialist Christian. And so I thought, yeah, that's actually a pretty good way to describe it if you understand sort of where and when existentialism came to the fore, sort of in the mid-20th century, beginning of the post-war. The post-war consensus, I've been obviously thinking about that a lot. You've seen the videos that I've put out after Synod, and I'm going to have to make some more videos about Synod, but I've posted a lot of videos about Synod recently, but there'll be more. But I wanted to just do a video on this. I talked to Dreer and Bethel in a few minutes, so I have to keep this quick. But existentialism is sort of a bridge. Well, you can find it all the way back to Kierkegaard. Existentialism is sort of a response to, let's say, heavily saturated Christendom. And it's deeply tied to secularism, and it's sort of deeply tied also to phenomenology, in that it's very personal, and it's very personalist, but it's a little bit transcendent to personalism. And what I liked about this, again, as what Glenn liked, is that Joe Weller, who I've never heard of before, Joe Weller comes at Alex O'Connor sort of from below. So you sort of have all of these, smart people with just enough education to throw around the philosophy, like me, let's say. Because I'm certainly not a philosopher, but just enough, people who know just enough philosophy to get themselves in trouble. And Joe Weller's like, you might hit a bunch of the midwits, but or maybe the high intelligent people, but for the most part, that most people aren't going to connect on that area. And if you're really talking about moving the needle in terms of people's behaviors and their commitments, you're going to have to hit a much more existential register. Now, I'm not using that really necessarily in tying in with existentialism, but it will have to be existential. It will have to, in a sense, be connected with their felt base of being. I'll say it like that.
To experience this energy, this
Yeah,
guidance.
what I'm saying is because
that?
I haven't felt anything like that, or I haven't seen that kind of thing. The
You've been open to it. Have you gone looking for it? Have you gone down that path?
And this is something that Alex O'Connor often responds in a way like this, and then usually the response by Christians and other people like this Joe Weller is sort of, "What have you really, really done it?" And I think that's helpful because I remember when Sam Harris was talking to Jordan Peterson, and Sam Harris talked about the fact that he had done psychedelics, and Jordan Peterson's like, well, maybe not enough psychedelics. And I want to push this from just sort of an armchair or an explorer posture of we're going to explore and we're going to come to ideas and we're going to sort of a middle brow, not a midwit, but a middle brow. There's highbrow, lowbrow, sort of middle brow to lowbrow. Well, I'm just going to say if it's true. But again, you get to sort of Jordan Peterson's definition of religion. That's not really your religion. Because if something doesn't sort of have you by the guts, if something isn't felt existential for you, if it's not to the point of you need this or you will die. I mean, you can look at, let's say, the story of Jacob and Esau, and for Esau, part of the reason that story has grip is that in some ways it demonstrates that for Esau, at least at that moment, his God was his belly. He needed that stew, that red stuff so bad, he was willing to sell his birthright. And this sort of triggered for me when I watched this video, the question of the pearl of great price. Now you can ask the question, well, is Alex O'Connor just out there sort of as an impartial observer? And this sort of gets into this whole idea of rationalism. This sort of religious mystique that you know, Peugeot and Vervaeke nicely in that little intro video to Vervaeke's class on ritual that the Symbolic World did, which I haven't seen, that, well, we're going to come to an understanding and, well, we're going to decide whether or not there's a God. And part of the presumption behind secularity in all of this is it'll be a yes or a no. But it won't change me. It won't do anything to me. And this lies behind C.S. Lewis's definition of pantheism. This is from his book Miracles, where, you know, it's man's search for God. But what's really troubling is then comes the moment when the children who have been playing at burglars hush suddenly. Was that a real footstep in the hall? There comes a moment when people who have been dabbling in religion, man's search for God, suddenly draw back, supposing we really found him. We never meant it to come to that. Worse still, supposing he had found us. Begins, men are reluctant to pass over from the notion of an abstract negative deity and the living God. I do not wonder. Here lies the deepest taproot of pantheism and of the objection to traditional imagery. It was hated not at bottom because it pictured him as a man, but because it pictured him as king or even warrior. The pantheist's God does nothing, demands nothing. He is there if you wish for him to be, like a book on the shelf. He will not pursue you. There is no danger at all. At any time, heaven and earth should flee away at his glance. If he were the truth, then he would really say that all the Christian images of kingship were a historical accident of which our religion ought to be cleansed. It's with a shock that we discover them to be indispensable. You have had a shock like that before in connection with smaller things, when the line pulls at your hand, when something breathes beside you in the dark. So here, the shock comes at the precise moment when the thrill of life is communicated to us along with the clue that we have been following. It is always shocking to meet life where we thought we were alone. Look out, we cry, it's alive! And therefore, this is the real point at which so many draw back. I would have done so myself if I could and proceed no further with Christianity. Oh, I say it's true. Let's get on now with whatever it is I was sort of fascinating myself by in this great world of opportunity. An impersonal God, well and good. A subjective God of beauty, truth, and goodness inside our own heads. Better still, a formless life force surging through us. This is long before Star Wars. A vast power which we can tap. Best of all, but God himself, alive, pulling at the other end of the cord, perhaps approaching at infinite speed, the hunter, the king, husband, that is quite another matter.
Yeah, like to the extent that it's difficult to know because a lot of people say, well, you think you're trying, but you're not open enough. And I think I've tried. I really, really think I've tried. And
How did you try?
firstly, really important is being open to it. Like when you were telling us about your experience and even my listeners might be surprised to hear me say like, oh, yeah, maybe it was true. Right. But like, if we're going to have this conversation, you at least need to try to put that hat on for that conversation. Otherwise, it's going to be pointless, right? And so, in religion, the first step is to actually
religion and God,
or God. Sorry, I should say,
yeah.
God's existence, or even just non-material, spiritual, whatever. The first step is going to be like, in order to say that you've tried it, you need to have first put yourself in a position where you believe in its plausibility. I think there's so much weird stuff in the universe that I very much believe in the plausibility of consciousness being immaterial.
But notice in the first position, really? Oh, okay, yeah. Wondered if this mic was working. Is that really the first position? If that is the first position, you're not... And I know some of you are going to say, oh, darn Calvinist. Why would you bring your Calvinism to this moment? Because this is the Calvinist moment. Because the question isn't, Alex, if you're looking for God. The question is he looking for you? Now ask and you will find, seek and, knock and the door will be answered, etc., etc. Yeah, true. I'm not going to try to correct Jesus. No. But the kind of search is not, first I am going to discuss the plausibility. Well, let's say you're a drowning man in the middle of the ocean, or not the middle of the ocean, but at least far enough away from land that you've now panicked and are desperate, and you realize that nobody seems around. What do people do? They yell help, even if they can't see anybody or don't have any plausible understanding of why anybody would actually hear their cry for help, and then they pray. Well, why do they pray? Well, they don't say, well, I don't know if it's plausible that a God would hear me. They just do it because they're desperate. And so I would imagine, now let's imagine God as a hot girl. You can have fun with this illustration. The hottest of all girls, because all the hotness of the hottest girl, of course, comes from God, the source of all beauty, of which every hot girl is just the beauty of God sort of shining through that particular individual. Not necessarily because that particular individual is more moral or more somehow deserves the glory of the beauty that she possesses. It's just a gift. It's given to her by God. And, with great power comes great responsibility, et cetera, et cetera. But let's say, well, is she the pearl of great price? What will you do? And basically the way many women operate is, well, I know I've got some status in the marketplace. Maybe you've got some potential. Maybe you've got some things that attract me. But what should make me pick you? How bad do you want it? Are you willing to give me a diamond? Are you willing to propose marriage? Are you willing to stand up before all your friends and family, and even if you find God plausible, stand in front of God and say, I will be faithful to this person as long as I live, even after the beauty of youth has passed from us, and I will pray that other loves will grow and we will be bound and united so that your beauty with me will be always, even if you can no longer draw the attention of a room of 20-year-old men. You can't just sort of look at God and say, well, I think I'm going to go look for God today. Now imagine if just reverse that around and, there's a little ant out there in the church floor, and I think I'm going to go look for the pastor today. Okay, well, why should the pastor care about you? Do you really want to see the pastor? Do you really want to see the God? Because, again, what if the God doesn't want to see you? One of the things that you see in the Bible is every time an angel shows up, everybody sort of hits the ground because they're just sort of undone by the vision of just a messenger. Well, what about the one who made the messengers and the one who made them glorious, and the one whose glory, I mean, if just Moses can his skin can be luminescent from just being in the presence. This is not, so here we're going to have this debate, and one might say, really?
The existence of God, I think that's true.
So what does that mean? Joe Weller will press Alex.
I think
But
like
I've never
most
had
people
such an
that
experience.
believe in God don't go, oh yeah, I believe because like Jesus texts me.
No,
I think
but most
they-
people have some kind of experience.
Right.
And I've just never had such an
But
experience.
you said you gave it a go to like put that hat on. Like, what did you do to give that a go?
Well, there are a few ways to answer that question. One is to say that, like, I got a degree in theology. Right? I tried my best to...
Most people would say it's a case of like surrendering, going, I
Yeah.
surrender to
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I surrender to the fact that I don't have it all figured out, and I am open to like God's plan for me or something.
So that's just sort of like first level of desperation. This isn't drowning in the ocean levels of desperation.
Completely surrendering. That's how a lot of people would describe their like actually diving in headfirst and giving it a go. Have you ever done anything like that?
No, because of the fact that, like, in order to, as you put it, surrender to something, and people, like, like Christians will listen to what you're saying and go, yes, that's Alex's problem. He needs to surrender to Christ. And maybe they're right. Maybe if I surrendered to Christ, whatever that means in practice, I would become a Christian. But the problem is, right, I think I've done as much as can be expected of a non-believer, or close to it. Maybe I haven't, but I like to think that I've done a lot more than the average atheist should be expected to do.
Notice Joe Weller.
Now again, let's go back to the hot girl analogy. I did what could be expected to win the hot girl's heart, and she didn't reciprocate. So, and of course, the hot girl listening to this would say, "Yeah, you don't get me. Sorry, he'll have to get a lesser woman than me, because I gave it a show. But did you want me? Did you need me?" Now I'm thinking about Meatloaf Paradise by the Dashboard Light. There's a reason the Bible is what it is, and I've long ago said, falling in love is not buying a reasonable used car. And becoming a Christian is not like buying a reasonably used car. It's more like falling in love, that you'll give anything, you'll do anything. Now, someone might say, yeah, but there's a lot of Christians out there that just sort of grew up into it and believe it. And hey, fair enough. There are different kinds of love. You begin the relationship with, willing to do anything and, cross any stream, and 1,000 romantic stories. And then, of course, as so happens, a certain number of years into it, and you stood before your friends and promised to love this person for everything, ever. And then, a certain number of years later, you stand in front of a judge and claim that you never want to see that person again. People are like that. But there's also different kinds of love that transform, and we don't always feel that love. But again, the question here is, well, do you really want God? And no, actually, you could say I've made a pretty good career out of sort of, and now again, I got a ton of respect for Alex. I think the way he's handled himself is with a lot of honesty and a lot of integrity, and he's told us what he thinks, and fair enough. He gets to think what he thinks. That's absolutely fine. He's got a good life. He's a successful YouTuber. I'm sure he's deriving a decent income from this. He gets to travel around the world and do this and do that. And, again, I'm a Calvinist, so maybe God looks around and says, I don't know that Alex needs to look for me. I'd like him to look for me. I'd like him to love me. But that's always the difficulty with this, that, well, what if that hunter has his own opinions? And what if that hunter, C.S. Lewis just puts his finger right on it there, and that's sort of people's response to certain framings of Calvinism. And I don't want to go down that too hard, but God does get to choose. And that's not the frame or the picture that we want. And, I'm gonna put aside, eternal damnation. I'll just put all of that aside, and because there's lots of ways that you can sort of think through all of those modularities, and the internet, of course, is full of it. But I'll often use the example of, let's say, Paul of Tarsus, because when they're stoning Stephen, and the heavens open, and Stephen looks up and sees Jesus, and of course that infuriates everyone. Paul's there holding the cloaks, and one might say, well, Lord, if you sort of glanced a little put to the side when you're opening it up for Stephen, and just give that Saul of Tarsus a little bit of love, and he doesn't. And Saul goes on a rampage and does what he does, and then, of course, in the road to Damascus, now, open up those doors again and shine down the light, and Saul, why do you persecute me? Well, who are you? I'm Jesus, who you're persecuting. So, will Alex have a road to Damascus moment? Mary Harrington had a great little quip on Substack. Rationalists are not wrong to be alarmed by AI, because from their perspective, it really is apocalyptic. But what it kills is not physical people. It kills rationalism. People will be fine by outsourcing and therefore atrophying thinking themselves. Mary is not soft on AI. AI poses an existential threat to rationalism because the long-term effect of mass AI rollout will be that people are no longer inclined or even capable of approaching reality rationalistically. And it's that rationalistic approach to rationality. Now, to Alex's credit, Cosmic Skeptic was always a better name than Rationality Rules. But this little video is quite something. I'll put the link to Glenn's video below. The whole video is worth watching. I didn't see the subsequent video. It's a fun video, but yeah, how much does Alex want God? How much does Alex need God? What will Alex give to find God? Is God the pearl of great price for him? Or just an exercise in knowability? Like, to what degree can I know what it's like to be an alligator? That's an interesting question. What would it be like to be an alligator? I don't know. I'll think about that. So, don't have much time. Just wanted to make a quick little video. Quick little video is made.
It's kind of leaning in.
Oops. Leave a comment.